Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Trinity County Planning Commission, September 25th, 2025. Before we get started, I'd like to kick off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to start with some public comment. During the public comment period, members of the public may address the Planning Commission on any matter not listed on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Do we have any public comment in the room? Nope. Correct. No public comment in the room. Do we have anyone on Zoom? No one on Zoom. We're going to close public comment and get onto our regular calendar. So item A is approve the minutes of the August 14th, 2025 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
We have them on. Okay. I'm going to abstain since I wasn't there, but all in favor? Look at you. Thank you for the clarification. I have read them. So yes, all in favor.
Aye.
Thank you. Item B, planning. Blight ordinance discussion item continued from August 14th, 2025. Staff?
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, Drew Labani, Interim Planning Director. So on July 10th, 2025, public comment was received requesting that a blight ordinance item be agendized, and it was agendized and then continued from the last meeting. And so essentially in preparation for this item, staff reviewed some other local ordinances and included a hyperlink to the City of Red Bluff's blight ordinance, just for context and review. Primarily, I would say that the topic of blight and how we define blight, or how individuals define blight, may or may not be consistent with how jurisdictions define blight. And so ultimately, I think really what it boils down to is enforcement mechanisms as it relates to the practical implementation of a blight ordinance and or addressing instances that community members might consider to be blight. And that's why you'll see that the staff recommendation really was to have the Planning Commission make a recommendation to the board to address Title I and Title VIII to really enhance our enforcement mechanisms and consolidate those code sections so that we can more adequately achieve compliance through enforcement. So in looking at some of the other ordinances from adjacent Northern California jurisdictions, let's say, blight is often addressed in Title I of their code, which is normally just the general provisions section, or Title VIII, which in our code is health and safety, and it is that way also in many other jurisdictions. So essentially, we can definitely get into a discussion about it, but I think that one of the primary updates that would make sense for, Community Development Department to encourage compliance and also to create an adequate cost recovery mechanism for staff time to go out and actually, if we were to make some enhancements to Chapter 8 and the notice of violation section and leverage that more effectively to try to resolve instances that community members might consider to be blight, some of which are engaging in uses without a use permit, wouldn't actually qualify under the definition of blight that I've seen in other jurisdictions, but related to health and safety, unsafe conditions as far as dwellings or commercial buildings, those types of buildings that might attract vagrants or, other people to wander in and trespass and then hurt themselves, things like that are often what are attempted to be addressed with blight, trash, things like that. But right now, we don't have a adequate cost recovery mechanism. So if staff goes out to issue a notice of violation, which doesn't actually work very well for zoning code related topics, which is why I've suggested updates to Chapter 8 to clarify that. And also knowing that we're updating zoning code, it would make sense to, preemptively go ahead and start to make some improvements to Title I and Title 8 so that we have, strong correlation between updated zoning code, enforcement mechanisms that are established in Chapter 17, and then back to cost recovery, it would make sense to have a violation removal fee established, which I've mentioned to the CAO that I think would be appropriate to include when we get into Community Development Department fee updates here later this year or early next year. Because right now staff would go out, they could potentially, for certain instances, issue a notice of violation. Then there's 7 days to correct that violation. And then they have to go back out and verify that it's been corrected, and then no fine is levied. And so we've expended a significant amount of staff time, depending on where that violation has occurred, to travel there twice without any cost recovery mechanism. So I think, from a compliance perspective, as a functional deterrent, having that, violation removal fee would make sense. And then updates to Title I, which right now give the county the ability to essentially threaten a misdemeanor. And then Title 8, which is more closely tied to health and safety, to just clarify that notice of violation section so that this all works together so that we can have adequate enforcement for instances of blight and instances of noncompliance with the zoning code.
Thank you very much. Any clarifying questions for staff?
So you're anticipating that the planning department staff would be the enforcement, not the code enforcement staff?
So right now, as it stands, code enforcement tasks have sort of been returned to the respective divisions within the community development department. And so depending on the type of issue, then that would dictate which division takes point on issuing a notice of violation, let's say, if that's the applicable enforcement mechanism. So code enforcement generally, yes, has returned to each of the respective divisions of community development department.
Any other clarifying questions for staff?
Yes. Are we seeing that these existing concerns are county-wide or specifically targeted in specific areas?
I mean, I can't speak to the specific concerns that particular individuals may have, as the basis for this request. But I would say that across the county, we probably have instances that would qualify as blight. We certainly, have abandoned houses that people move into and squat in. And I think really what it boils down to, though, is what's the best way to create compliance or do enforcement? Because in some instances, levying a monetary penalty on a property owner doesn't necessarily make anything change. And so I think that's really the dilemma from my perspective. But undoubtedly, we do have unsightly, occurrences or places across the county. You all represent different areas of the county, so you're probably more familiar with your respective stomping grounds, as I am, with where I travel to and from more regularly. So I don't know if that helps to answer the question. But.
And then, so currently, even under health and safety, and this may be something that I need to follow up with Christy or Cody, but we do not have anything sufficient to address abatement of any properties that would, say, have rodent infestations or anything like that that are then impacting neighbors.
I would say that, For health and safety, we probably do have the notice of violation process that can encourage compliance. As far as abatement, we certainly do have nuisance abatement within Chapter 8. I think where we fall there is a similar dilemma which exists across the board as far as cost recovery. Those costs for summarily abating a nuisance can be passed on to the property owner, but those costs may not be, recouped in any short term by the county incurring those costs,
And
to
is
resolve
that because our current fee recovery mechanism that we can't recover the fees quickly? Or that's simply just because absentee landowners may be absentee and never respond and then never cover the costs?
I don't know that I can adequately answer that question, across the board, but one piece, as I referenced earlier, in just having, in terms of staff cost to just go out and document and address, that instance of some health and safety concern, having a violation removal fee then covers the cost for staff to go back and forth. As far as recovering the cost to summarily abate a nuisance, there are probably some improvements that we could make, but my best understanding is that essentially, if a lien against a property is created, then the county isn't able to collect until that property goes through escrow, and then that's the capture mechanism. But there's also other ways that property can be transferred that do not include the escrow company. And so that's a way that I think people have skirted having to cover, previously incurred costs for enforcement type situations.
For a clean title. Okay.
Yep.
But under current nuisance, that some of the clear health and safety violations, that could be addressed as current policy reads.
It could be addressed. I think the dilemma is the funding source to actually abate the nuisance. Of the community development divisions, environmental health is the only division that currently has a violation removal fee. So for the rest of the divisions, I think we should, copy that and put it to use.
So I'm curious how this works with the vegetation ordinance, because when people have overgrown lots or something like that in the past, we've called code enforcement, and they sent the code enforcement officer out to talk to the landowner, and luckily the landowner cleaned up the vegetation. But the mechanism, like you say, putting a lien on would mean that you'd have to, if they didn't, you'd have to expend an upfront cost to abate the nuisance, and then you just never know when you're going to get that money back. So the vegetation ordinance, I guess, is a little different than the rest of the other county ordinances, because that places the cost on your tax bill. So when you pay your taxes each year, it gets added to your tax bill. But I guess my question is, do you anticipate planning department would be going out enforcing the vegetation ordinance if someone called? Or who would enforce that particular one? Which department would be responsible?
It's a great question. I would say that that's a topic of discussion that is ongoing. And as far as currently enforcing that, again, all those same dilemmas apply. So currently, if it came in, as a complaint, we would log it. In terms of how it would be addressed, that's a big picture policy question that we definitely need to grapple with, and likely need to clearly allocate some funding to accomplish that.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, what about it being just a Weaverville or a Fork, like a city ordinance
We don't have,
versus a county?
yeah, we don't have any incorporated cities, so it's going to apply to the county.
The entire county?
Yep.
Okay.
Um,
Gonna be a lot of fines.
I don't know if it's a question or it's to follow on from Commissioner Fall and Commissioner Flights, but I've lived other municipalities where if someone wasn't maintaining their property, not cutting the grass or garbage, there was a mechanism in place for the county to actually go out and clean it up, and then it would be added to their tax bill, like Commissioner Fall said, payable on the next renewal. You know, and it's difficult for someone like me who leans libertarian and letting people live their life, but I certainly don't want to live next door to someone with garbage and sewage, and you know, so it's a fine line. I do agree there is a problem in Trinity County for this issue. So I don't know if there's a mechanism in place to follow along with what Commissioner Flights and Commissioner Fall said, to have the ability to clean up that property and place compensation on their property taxes, and how that process works. I don't want to step over my line, but I have seen that be successful in other municipalities.
Agreed. And I'll be honest and say that I don't think I'm sufficiently familiar with exactly how that mechanism works, but I believe that updates to Title I and Title VIII could potentially pave the path for that to be a more clear process. So if, you know, if it's the pleasure of the commission to make a recommendation to the board, that might be a good piece to add in there in terms of, you know, kind of your recommendation there.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Well, I think for it to go to your property taxes, it would have to be voted on by the people. But I don't think the county can just add to that, can they?
I mean, that's the way it's, so my understanding is that's the way it's currently written for the vegetation ordinance, which was added later to the Health and Safety Code, Title VIII. But when I talked to Christy about attractive nuisances, so like we have a burned down house, and so how do you get that burned down house cleaned up? That goes through the mechanism where they put the lien on your property, and that gets recouped when you sell the property. That's the bulk of the, as I understand it, the bulk of the way to recoup the cost is a lien versus the vegetation ordinance, which has this different mechanism, which is adding to your tax bill.
I think a lien would be legal. I think the tax would have to be voted on by the people.
And typically,
It's not a tax, it's just a fee.
Well, if you're adding to the taxes, it is a tax.
It's recouping the fee that the county spent to abate the nuisance.
I will
Anyway.
That's
add-
kind of a slippery slope,
Put
I
that
think.
out later, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
will add that in past, I reviewed Humboldt County Code because they have a mechanism where NOVs get added to a property tax bill. I didn't get all the way through solving the puzzle, but essentially there is something that is distinct between their county code and ours that enables that mechanism more clearly there than currently is established in Trinity County Code. So something that we can certainly work on. And, you know, I think all of that is really the purview of the Board of Supervisors. And so if you want to make that recommendation for them to start digging into it, I encourage you guys to do so.
Is there any state funding to comply with blight or address blight, or are there any grant funding sources for that? Because even if, you know, anyway, with the cost recovery model, we know that there will be gaps no matter what. So is there anything else out there?
The only thing that comes to mind, I know Christie's mentioned that there's a program with Cal Recycle to deal with junk cars. That's the only thing that really comes to mind right now. There may be other, you know, funding mechanisms and grant opportunities that exist, but none that I'm specifically aware of.
Right, and the RCD is already utilizing that funding cycle. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you, staff. Can we open it up to public comment, please? Public comment in the room.
Good evening, Ben Kellogg, Weaverville. So 2 months ago, the reason why I brought this to the attention of the Planning Commission is a fewfold. One, personal experience, reaching out to the county on different topics and being told, for instance, by an unnamed fire chief that we don't have a VMO ordinance in this county and you need to go to the county. Go to the county says, no, it's not a county issue. Please go back to the fire chief. So confusion would be a nice fix in this situation. Combining all of the blight, so to speak, ordinances into one ordinance, because I've also had comments by staff. Man, there's a lot of places where there are blight in our ordinances everywhere. And having that just placed in one general area would make everyone's lives better. So whether you're a supervisor, a planning commissioner, staff, whoever it is, can just go to one section and find everything. Second reason is just I got tired of seeing quote unquote blight everywhere. People complain all the time. You know, people are dropping trash everywhere. People are paying people to clean up areas, and they're supposed to be taking it to the dumps, and they're not. RVs being dropped, cars are being dropped everywhere in this county. Politically speaking, I'm more of a libertarian, so there is that slippery slope, but I feel like you shouldn't infringe on other people's way of life just by dropping your crap everywhere. So, and then the Red Bluff ordinance I attached, you know, reading through the Trinity one, you know, there's a place in there. There are people who have had signs in the county up in thoroughfares throughout the county. That detracts from tourism. Tourists don't want to come in here and know what your politics are, know what your religion is. And there's actually in the ordinance currently that you're not supposed to mimic a Caltrans sign. So I think impersonate is the word that's in the ordinance. I've been told, well, the person that has the signs up, this person is litigious. He has threatened to sue the county over free speech. That's a way to get around that. Actually putting teeth in the ordinance. It's great to have a whole bunch of words down, but if you don't have enough code enforcement, if you don't have a mechanism.
Ben?
Unless
No, no. Thank you very much for your comment. Any other public comment in the room? No public comment in the room? Anyone available on Zoom? We're going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission for a discussion. Commissioners,
Yeah, if I may, Chair.
please.
I think it matters, it boils down to the ability to enforce, right? So there's a barn that burned down next door to my house. And I reached out to the environmental health, and I mean, there's, you know, you could, we could have a lawsuit against them, but then it would be a lien on their property, and then there's ways for them to transfer the title where it never gets paid. You know, in Humboldt County, they can actually take your property, and I'm not sure how I feel about that level of enforcement, but you know, there's such levels of poverty in our community that you levy a fee. Oftentimes the places that have blight, not signs, but like drive up Underwood Mountain Road and there's a methtopia. That's what the locals call it. I mean, you know, they could have a lien, levy fees, but it's not going to do anything. It's, you know, and so that's only going to further deteriorate the value of that property. It's, you know, and then for the county to have to incur the costs of enforcement without being able to get those funds back when we are we're just so fiscally
Stretched.
stretched is, that's a lot to ask.
Sure.
So it's a tough situation.
So one thing that we have been saying in our previous meetings and talking about the zoning code and everything is talking about what fits for where we are and what makes sense.
Mhm.
And so, we're not in downtown Reading. We're not many of us don't live in HOAs, and we chose to be in this area because of that. And so to me, how there's the balance there, and I don't see where it is quite here yet. My line is health and safety. So if again, the sewage, if you're attracting rodents that are then impacting neighbors' health, those kinds of lines I'd like to see improved. But if it's just some junk cars, like, we're kind of where we are for a reason.
Yeah.
And some of it we need to accept because we can't control everything that's outside of our own properties, right? So that's one of my concerns. The other thing is, especially if we're going to invest more county funds to address this issue and bring it to a bigger stage, I would have liked to see more people here tonight. I'm sorry, but we've had it agendized before. We had it agendized again tonight, and so I'm not seeing what I need as countywide support and interest in this to look at investing additional funds, additional staff time, potential contractor time to review, put together more packets, and keep this ball really rolling. So I would like to see more buy-in. Is there a petition? Is there like, and I guess I'm not there yet where I'm seeing the driving force to be like, I'm going to advise the county to pull them off of other projects that are moving forward so that then, they're not working on a subdivision because they're going to do this instead. And so there's other things that I think I personally would like to prioritize for their time over this right now, unless there was additional driving forces.
So, that's exactly what I was saying. I mean, so we're currently, so some of the issues that are brought up, like the overgrown vegetation, that would be addressed. We're supposed to be revising the vegetation ordinance. Potentially, as we're revising chapter 17, we would tighten up some of the zoning stuff. I don't see that this rises to the top of the level of priorities. I'd rather see the list of 87 projects or whatever it was that Bella was listing move forward, the subdivisions and all that versus spending time on this. I totally agree. I mean, I think, I think we should recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they address the funding mechanisms, in Title I, and that they take some of the dangerous nuisances and add those to Title VIII. But a lot of the things that they're talking about, blight, like a building with peeling paint, or, you have your construction equipment parked in your side yard and it's not obscured by shrubbery and stuff. I'm sorry, but in my neighborhood, if someone has their bulldozer and it's parked in their side yard, I'm like, okay, fine. You couldn't park your utility trailer or your boat in your front yard. Well, around here, what is your front yard? So there's a lot of stuff that was in the Red Bluff ordinance where they're talking about definitions of what's blight that truly don't apply here. So I think we really need to narrow what we're asking you guys, the Board of Supervisors, to consider, which is just the funding mechanism and abatement of dangerous nuisances. And I think we can do that, like you say, in Title VIII.
I would agree with that. And similarly, you had brought up, is it like, can we do it just for Weaverville or can we do it just for Hayfork? And I don't think that's appropriate without the public driving that conversation, without mutual interest in it. And again, it's countywide funds. So I don't want to see something that's really like one community's concern applied to the whole entire county because it doesn't make sense. And true, like, can't park your boat in the front, can't, that's how many of us have boats in our driving ways? How many have boats that are uncovered? How many have trailers that are parked next to our houses or our barns or our properties. Making it so it makes sense for Trinity County is something that we need to do. And when it's going to endanger our children, when it's going to endanger our livelihoods, it's going to pollute our waters, do those things, that's where I'm saying yes. But if, somebody has their trailer in their side yard, cool. Like, I hope they're enjoying it and that they get to take it out every now and again,
And on that note, I think environmental health and the Department of Fish and Wildlife do have authority to mitigate that if it's polluting waterways or is just like it is a nuisance to the environment. Yeah, I agree. If this is something to bring forward to spend energy towards, I would like to see more support. And a petition is a great idea. I'd like to see, like, if the hall was full of people that are asking in unison for the same thing, that would be very different. I would feel different.
So for me, I think the support and the public input is a clear indicator of what the county thinks of us. I've been a commissioner for 6 years, 5 years. I think I'm the longest serving commissioner on the board. I remember being in this commission hall when it was standing room only. And now we're lucky to get one person to two people. And I think that is a clear statement from the public that they have lost faith in us and the fact that they have come to us with their woes and concerns. And we have given our feedback, whether it's been positive or negative, and it goes nowhere. So I believe Trinity County has lost faith in the Planning Commission and the supervisors as a whole. And as a second, as someone who has climbed over garbage to do their job, you guys all know what I did for a living. There's lots of communities in this area. I've been to most of them, most people's houses, and there's houses in Lewiston that have garbage as tall as their 6-foot tall fence that you have to climb over to get into their property. And, there's no ability for that neighbor to call enforcement because they've said we've called enforcement and the county doesn't do anything, which is a catch-22 for, I believe, the issue that people have lost faith in the county. We continue to operate on a shoestring budget, and we have people who, in my opinion, don't always have the best interests of the community in heart, and that has hurt the community and hurt the commission and hurt the supervisor's reputation and ability to do their job. But I do support having ability especially under Title VIII for health and safety, for someone to be able to call up and say, hey, my neighbor's property is a mess, they're doing this, they're doing that, and there should be some ability and some accountability and some skin in the game from the county to go fix that. Now, as far as the expense reimbursement or mitigation process to get that money back, I don't pretend to know, and like Director Plablani said, that's outside my wheelhouse, but I know it is in place in it is in action in other places, and I certainly would be agreeable with asking the Board of Supervisors to investigate how to do that. But I think sadly, public comment on Zoom and in the room is a clear indicator of where Trinity County feels about us. But if anybody wants to bring it it's a discussion item, we want to bring it to a motion to bring to the.
I have a motion I'm going to throw out there. I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the Board of Supervisors consider revising Title I to address funding mechanisms and adding narrow definitions of dangerous nuisances to Title VIII Health and Safety Code while considering the workload of the planning department staff.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion. Do we have discussion or we want to just vote?
I was trying to kind of consolidate everybody's concerns there. I think I
It's
got it.
a good motion. It's a good motion. We have a vote, please? Yes, please.
Commissioner McIntosh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Fall, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Flights, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Harper, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Barrett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you, 5-0 for the recommendation to the board to consider revision of Title I.
Thank you very much.
I'll write. You want me to write it out for you?
I'll listen to the.
Thank you. Moving on to item C, appointment of a commissioner to the subdivision review committee. Staff?
So per Trinity County Code, Chapter 16.10.010, the Planning Commission needs to appoint a member or commissioner to serve as chair of the subdivision review committee. So that is the purpose of this agenda item. I don't know that I need to give any more background on that.
The planning director is the chair. The planning commissioner is just,
No, the appointed.
Oh, you're
commissioner,
right,
yep,
chairman.
The planning director is the secretary of the subdivision review committee.
So if I may, Chair, when was the last time the review committee was active?
was with Commissioner Sharp.
Thank you, staff. Thank you, staff, for that in-depth report. Okay. I'd like to open it up to public comment. Any public comment in the room? No public comment in the room. Any public comment on Zoom? No public comment on Zoom. We're going to close public comment and bring it back to the commission for a discussion. Commissioners?
When are the meetings usually held?
On an as-needed basis.
During business hours, evening hours? What's the,
I don't know if that's specified in the code.
It's not specified. It used to be during business hours because of the staff. It's the planning director, public works director, health officer.
Okay.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be.
Volunteers.
Could it be designated to a Monday or a Thursday?
I think we can schedule them on an as-needed basis, and, you know, something that works for all of the individuals that need to be on it, but we can certainly take note of specific days and times that are being requested.
Like if Dan's already up here on a Monday or Thursday.
Dan? Favorite of Dan?
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Do we honestly have a volunteer? Would someone like to be in the position?
Can I nominate Commissioner Harper?
I'll try it.
Okay. Commissioner Harper has a nomination and volunteered.
I'll second the nomination.
We will vote.
Commissioner Blights, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner McIntosh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Fall, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Barrett, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Harper?
No.
Ed?
Congratulations, Commissioner Harper.
Yeah, thank you.
That concludes our regular calendar. Do we have any planning commissioner reports?
I do have a couple things for you.
What about
Excuse
me?
me. Excuse me.
I apologize.
Yeah, Apology is accepted. Planning commissioners.
We did have a couple meetings for the Weaverville Architectural Review Committee. We did approve the variable color palette. So we have a color palette for the architectural review district or the architectural district in Weaverville that hopefully shortly people can come and see to utilize as to what are pre-approved colors that they can then paint their buildings on. And then we have a brochure and a letter from the county that is also available to go with it shortly that describes what's intended and just helps do some of the introduction into the architectural districts and why they're important and why we value them and how to help maintain them.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners' reports?
I have one. I wanted to really thank Angel for helping me out with a thorny issue in Trinity Center, helping me to educate myself and the community. Because we had a alcohol and detox center proposed for a single-family home in the middle of a residential area. People were pro and con, but it was more that, well, we didn't get to provide our 2 cents worth. We didn't have any chance for public comment. And as Angel has researched and explained to me, it is state law that essentially a group home that includes people with disabilities and substance abuse is considered a disability, that there's no really kind of input by the community on whether or not, that kind of facility is in a residential neighborhood. So I appreciate all the hard work you did on that. Thank you. And yeah, I've learned something.
Just for my own curiosity, is it going there?
Yeah, the ironic thing is this person purchased a single family home where, because it's less than 6 beds, it can serve as a group home for alcohol and drug detox. It is about 75 yards away from where this person has also purchased a motel and is putting in a sports bar. So there's a
like-
little irony for you.
Thank you. And as always, thank you to the staff for all the hard work they do. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other commissioners? Director report.
Thank you. So first, I want to start off by formally introducing and welcoming our newest member of the Planning Division, Alex Beniskevich, to the team. Look forward to having him present in front of you all. Alex, if you want to say hi on the mic, feel free to.
And community, thank you for having me here. Appreciate the opportunity to serve the county.
Thank you, Alex.
Welcome.
And then basically, I want to talk through with you all the upcoming parts of zoning code that we need to bring forward for your review. First, I'll start with part 3, which you previously reviewed on 2 occasions. I know that, for the sake of time, when we reviewed it the last time, I took some notes and offered that we could dig deeper into some of those code sections that you had concerns about. So essentially, looking at, the calendar, I'd like to propose that if you guys would like to spend some more time on part 3, that, you all take it upon yourselves to review it thoroughly. I don't think that, going forward for that item or for the rest of them, time will allow for us to read line by line. That's just not accomplishable. I also want to just make it known that at any point, as we're going forward through the rest of these parts of zoning code, if you have comments that you'd like to send directly to staff, please feel free to. If you have questions, please reach out, and we can work through some of that, not up here at the dais, so that hopefully we can also facilitate moving through the formal review of those components. So if you do want to revisit part 3, then I'm going to propose that we do that on October the 23rd at that regularly scheduled planning commission meeting.
Is it possible to keep using the track changes so that we can track where stuff's deleted, added? Because that really helped the last time with trying to figure out what they changed.
Yeah, so are you saying that you would like to have the notes taken into the existing track changes version?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that seems reasonable, and ultimately, yeah, we can keep tracking the changes on that version that was previously presented to you all. That's no problem.
You said the 23rd?
Yeah. Okay. So we'll plan on that. And then we have a few remaining parts of zoning code that need to come before you all in advance of, final adoption and then those formal hearings that will happen sometime next year. So we're proposing that part 2 come before you on the December 11th meeting. That is probably the most involved or one of the largest, parts of the overall updated zoning code. So I'd like to propose that we start earlier that day. I'm not sure if your schedules can accommodate that, but based on discussion with, staff and Mentor Harnish, team, how does 2 p.m. start sound? We give ourselves a maximum of 8 hours to get through that.
I'm sorry, did you just say 8 hours? That will be my last, it'll actually be my last meeting as chair, so quite a blaze of glory.
I'm hopeful that, you know, if there's sufficient review in advance and we give you guys a few weeks of lead time with publishing those documents, that then we can, you know, do our best to not spend 8 hours. If that's not accomplishable, we could start a little later, but I wanted to make sure that, you know, we had enough time because we kind of need to get through it and allow it all to start getting fully incorporated into the EIR preparation. So we don't want to drag this out, or we'll negatively impact the overall timelines.
I can be available at 2 o'clock. I can adjust my schedule.
I'll be here. I'm
I-
the retiree.
I think I can make that work.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate that. And then lastly, we're going to propose January 15th meeting for part 4. I don't know that we need that many hours, but you know, we might want to consider starting earlier for that meeting as well. We don't need to determine that now, but just throwing that out there. And then we will have definitions also as a standalone section, but some of those will be brought with the other parts, you know, the really important pieces that go along with their respective parts. And I want to, I guess, also just, you know, point out that we had the round of community workshops. Some of you were able to attend your, you know, respective workshops. I don't know that they were terribly well attended, but the ones that I had attended, I thought did provide some good insight that we can incorporate into, you know, establishing zoning code. I felt like there was good discussion about mixed use. So all in all, constructive. And I think it gives us a little bit more insight into what the community members in those specific communities want to see as far as, you know, future development. So that's all I have for you all. Thank you.
Thank you very
Drew,
much.
Drew, would you mind, did you attend the Junction City one?
I did not.
Were you there? I saw in the newspaper, it was quoted that there is demand from the public for an additional public space outside of the Junction City Park. And so would you mind, like, was there like more than an individual? And what was their thoughts on an additional public space?
Yeah, the thoughts on the additional public space was where there was direct river access to allow, like, I guess, more events at the river to
Mhm.
bring in more tourism
Cool.
and to kind of set it apart from some other locations and to try to bring in more economic development into Junction City.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. It's Drew's fault.
Hey, you guys. My daughter Maya is here for political science assignment, and she needs to get a picture with